Hello, it's Dory Danatel. Thank you for coming on today. Listen, if you haven't before, go ahead and subscribe now. I'll remind you at the end too. I wanted to talk a little bit about my past failed attempts at tracking food. And then I want to go into why I'm doing that now. All right, that's really what this particular video is about. So I just will say for many, many times, I started at a very young age. I started dieting probably when I was about 12 years old and just continued on from there. And the way I dieted then was just pretty much all over the place, but often used Weight Watchers or other like a paleo type of program. Really, truly stepped into just countless diets. And I'll just say, I could never really track very well. I felt like a constant failure. And so you may be wondering, like, what is the deal with tracking or taking your food and writing it down somewhere? What is the deal with that? Well, first off, I'm going to say, I would probably just say that tracking feels a little bit like transformation success. We got transformation success. Unfortunately, I believe that actually is a false statement. And I bring this up in case you are someone who has tried tracking or dieting for that matter. And though you can see why you want to be able to do this, you just can't seem to get there. And I'd first love for you to kind of just relax a little bit. All right, relax about everything if you could, and really just be ready to kind of hear from me and to be able to decide what your next steps are. All right. So for me, let's just start with way back in the day. All right. I pretty much spent 40 plus years going after diet after diet after diet. And I wish I could tell you exactly what you should do with your situation. But basically, the end of the failed diets for me happened probably about 7 years ago when I finally got into the place where I could learn to listen to my body. And I'll just say, at that time, intuitive eating finally became part of my transformational journey. All right. And so you may be wondering, well, does that mean you don't track anymore or you just don't track? That's not the case now. But I want to go into the intuitive eating piece because that actually was what sort of changed my approach initially. And now I'm into tracking also. And I'll talk about why I do that. So the intuitive eating piece, it was a huge transformational thing for me. And that really enabled me to just be able to sort of feel what was right for my body, what felt right for my body. All right. And I actually, unlike a lot of people, I actually lost about 25 pounds doing that and kept them off. It just happened. All right. And if you need help with that, please reach out to me because I can probably set you up on either give you some people's names that you could go look for or set you up on, this is a way to start doing intuitive eating so that it can make a transformational change for you. So then after about 5 or 6 years of doing that, I started tracking. That was almost a year ago. I started tracking. And I'll just tell you why. I decided that I wanted to weight lift or bodybuild, whatever you want to call it. And part of my coach's strategy was tracking food. Now, I didn't know what I was going to think or how that was going to come out for me, but I just decided I'll track food and I'll just see how this goes. I want to just also say is there's a lot of people around me who don't appreciate that I do track food and I actually still track food. And they'll say it looks like this is too intense. This seems like too much, all of those things, right? And I want to offer that as a possible outcome. That is a possible outcome. But the fact that I'm doing this doesn't mean that it's required or even necessary. It's just that I've learned that when my body does better is when I'm tracking what I'm eating. And I know in general what I'm eating. And I'll just say, it doesn't mean that I'm eating perfectly by any means. Like, no way, not eating perfectly. Tracking my food doesn't equal that I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing or I feel like I should be doing in the area of food. It really, for me, is simply a way that I can kind of monitor what I've had and make adjustments as needed. And so tracking has been a good situation for me. Now, again, had I done this 6 years ago, that probably wouldn't be the case. I needed to sort of disconnect from a quote dieting situation and just sort of come out of that. But now it works out really well for me. And I'll just say that I see it as the beginning of really true body acceptance and solid self-care. And this idea of having solid self-care and body acceptance may or may not happen for you. For some, it works like tracking works exactly like it did with me. And with tracking, I know exactly what I've had. And that's pretty much it. Like, I can put down what I've had and then move on. For others, though, out there, it can send them into a strict calorie counting piece. It can be problematic, all of those things. This is super important for you to decide if you would want to track, and maybe you try it for a bit and see how it goes. And if you're tracking and you're logging your food, just see what happens, right? Just see what happens. And if the tracking is problematic for you, you can do other things besides tracking to help you know that you are where you want to be. You can get educated on what a body needs, really, what types of things a body needs. You can become just real, right, around what your body needs truly are. And also you can become your body's best advocate. All of those things don't require tracking. Now, you can do the same things if you're tracking. So I know this isn't like you need to track versus you don't need to track. This is probably not the best choice if that's what you were looking for. But I also want to give you the opportunity to give it a try, see what happens. And if it doesn't work, or if it takes you into sort of a really intense dieting place, then I would say you might want to just put it aside and do some other things. Food journaling is another great option where you just are writing about food and how it made you feel and not necessarily keeping track of exactly what you ate. All right. So let's imagine that you do want to do some tracking. I'm going to talk about two different avenues to get you to, in essence, the same results, the same end. The first is the eyeball method. And this is not where you're putting in exactly how much something weighs or, the exact amount of any food. You're just sort of eyeballing it. So let's talk about what those eyeball measures are. So 1 cup, this would be like a baseball or your closed fist. And this would be great to see how you are with raw or cooked vegetables. Then let's go to 3 to 4 ounces. This is 90 grams in essence. Think about a deck of cards. That's a really good size. Or just this area right here, the thickness of your palm of your hand, right? And so it's not the fingers, it's just this part. That's great for measuring meat or poultry. Fish is a little bit different. I want you to think about a checkbook, so it's a little bit longer. And also the thickness when you have your checkbook in there, that's about how much you want your fish. So now we've got both the vegetables and or fruit, by the way, your meat, and then we're going to go into some of the other things. A tablespoon is this part of your finger right here. And so you can think about that when you're looking at, say, nut spreads or some fats. And then a teaspoon is this part of your finger right here. So this would be great for oils, butters, fats, other types of things. That's kind of the eyeball method. And now if you really wanted to track, you would need to decide what tracking app to use. There's a plethora of these. I happen to use MyFitnessPal. It's probably the most common, but there are so many. And then you just want to, you can pick one. I would say just pick one. Don't try to do a bunch of them. Just pick one, get going on it, see how it works. Don't worry if you're not perfect. And then decide what you think about it and, decide if you want to try something different, if you want to continue, or if you've decided you're going to go with your eyeball method, or you're giving up tracking altogether. And you really want to decide from the tracking what is the most beneficial for you. All right. So why is this topic so important? I would just say there's a couple of things I want to make sure before we head out today and that you are aware of that will help you kind of decide, what do I want to do? And do I want to do this? The first is something called anorexia of aging. Now, this is actually really important, really interesting also, is what happens as we age is often we end up eating less and less and less and less. And we don't worry about it. However, I will just tell you is in general, we are eating too small of an amount as we start to sort of wind down. And I get it. We get to be, maybe in our 70s and 80s, and we just don't care anymore. And that is one thing. However, I would just say you definitely want to make sure that you are getting protein in your current food, in what you're taking in. So just make sure that you are getting your protein. And by the way, we need more protein in general as people 50 and over. We need more protein in general than what anyone says out there. So just know this. And then also there's something called muscle depletion or I guess depletion is the right word. And what happens is as we age, we start to lose muscle. And that's just a normal, as what happens. It is a normal thing, unless we are actually working to not lose muscle, which, by the way, is a great thing to be doing. So if you want to know more about this topic in particular, go ahead and look for my masterclass on how to amp up your health over 50, because I go into great detail on what to do about these two things. But in essence, that gives you at least the general gist of how to start tracking. You can do the eyeball method, or you can track with a tracker of some sort. And from there, I think you can then decide what it is that you need to be doing, what it is that you want to be doing, and then just include that. If it's tracking, then you're tracking. And that, by the way, is where I am. I currently am tracking. Will I do this forever? I don't know if I'll do it forever, but for now it's great and it's working great. And I have a coach and she and I go through together what, if there's issues, what I can do, what I, might want to think about, all of those things. So anyways, I hope this was helpful. I know it was just a little bit of a, throw stuff out and you can do whatever you want, but hopefully this was somewhat helpful to help you decide if you want to track or if not. And again, I would probably say give tracking a little bit of a check out, see if you like it, and then decide from there. All right. Thanks so much. And also subscribe if you would like to keep seeing my videos. See you on the next one.